Welcome to Beyond the Page, the official podcast of Choice, the magazine of professional coaching, where we bring you amazing insights and in-depth features you just won't find anywhere else. I'm your host, Gary Schleifer, and I'm excited to expand your learning as we dive into the latest article, have a chat with the brilliant author behind it, and uncover the learnings that are transforming the coaching world. When you have a chance, join our vibrant community of coaching professionals as we explore groundbreaking ideas, share expert tips and techniques, and make a real difference in our lives. Remember, this is your go-to resource for all things coaching. But for now, let's dive into our podcast. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Daphne Watkins, who wrote an article in our most recent issue, Coaching Anti-Racism and the Backlash Against DEI. Her article is entitled Coaching as Agents of Change, Shaping the Future of Social Impact Leadership. Little bit about Daphne. She has a PhD, an executive MBA, and she's also a coach who has dedicated her career to improving the lives of underrepresented communities. With more than 2 decades of research on Black men's health, she has worked to dismantle systemic barriers limiting their access to healthcare and education. During the COVID-19 pandemic, she expanded her focus to include leadership development and organizational development, drawing from her extensive experience working with leaders in higher education, healthcare, and community settings. Today, her research examines the impact of executive coaching on faculty and professional development in hopes of empowering social impact leaders across industries to transform systems, institutions, and organizations. Just like that, right, Daphne? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
simple.
simple.
Hey.
Okay, so I do have to ask, so first of all, welcome and thank you for writing for Choice. Really appreciate it and for being here for our podcast. What had you focus just on Black men's health?
Oh, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Yes. So you read in my bio that yes, for 20 years I have been I've been focusing my research pretty solely on Black men's mental health, and it has a lot to do with just family dynamics and how I grew up and trying to understand the implications of how men see themselves as men and how that impacts their decisions to seek help for healthcare or to seek help for mental health care in particular. And so I've always been interested in sort of gender and race intersections and how that influences behavior. And so it wasn't until just recently, about 5 or 6 years ago, that I got bitten by the coaching bug, if you will, and,
Wow.
and decided to expand my work beyond Black men's mental health to learn a little bit more about coaching and its effect on professionals.
Oh, wow. And just while we're talking about it, did you tip into some commonalities for Black women's health?
I
Like, I
did,
heard
of
there were
course.
systemic issues and things like that, but
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, one of the places where I trained after I finished my PhD was a department of OBGYN.
oh,
And I often
okay.
and I often tell people it was the first time someone had to convince me to take a job because for many years I have studied Black men's mental health, but the folks in OBGYN said, it's time for you to understand the family dynamic and the family health and what are the sort of intersections between women, men, and children's health. And so one of the best jobs I had ever taken. Actually, it really broadened my scope to think about family health and how do men and women sort of play into that dynamic.
Yeah. Wow. And you're in the United States.
I am. Yes,
That
I'm
is,
in Michigan.
okay. I'm just over east of you. I'm in Ontario in Canada.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
I can't even imagine the differences between the American, well, I know the difference between the American healthcare system and the Canadian healthcare system, but I can't help but believe there's still systemic issues for people. So, yeah, thank you for
Absolutely.
doing that work and for continuing to do it and being a leader in that. So, moving on to what called you, inspired you to write the article for us at this time?
Wow. Well, I was invited by one of our dear colleagues to think about contributing to this issue because, like I said, I've been doing executive coaching and working with organizations and leaders for the past several years, and these are just the hard questions that it's sometimes very difficult to answer. And more recently, I've been getting this question a lot, and quite a few of my coaching clients have not been people of color. Actually,
Mm,
they've reached out in the past few years and have said, I'm a white man, I'm a white woman, and I want my executive coach to be a person of color. And so it just got me to thinking about, okay, yeah, what does that look like? What does it look like in this sort of anti-DE&I world that we live in now, right? What does it look like to coach someone of a different race, of a different gender? And so I just kind of went from there and got the idea for the article. And one other thing that I'll say that definitely contributed to the meat of the article is that I'm a professor at the University of Michigan and I teach in our management and leadership pathway. And the title of one of my classes is Social Impact, Leadership, and Governance.
Oh,
And so I've thought a lot about these issues, Gary.
yeah. No kidding. Teach it, write about it. Well, thank you. That's great.
Yes, yes. Yeah, great. So that's what motivated me to write this article.
All right. For those that haven't written the article, what is social impact leadership?
Yeah, well, the short answer is really uplifting the lives of people whose voices have not been heard.
Mhm.
It's not just about leadership around being the most important person in the room or having a title. It's about how can you give a voice to the voiceless? How can you uplift people who are challenging, who are experiencing challenges, who are struggling? It's about being the kind of leader who cares about more than yourself. You're really trying to give back to the community, to the organizations and the people that you care about, and really trying to do more to actually leave a legacy once you're gone.
Okay, so tell me why everybody isn't like this, or do you have to self-identify as a social impact leader?
Well, I'm so glad you asked because the first time I discovered social impact leadership, I had the same reaction. Like, shouldn't we all strive to
Right.
actually be the kind of leaders that want to help people and give a voice to the voiceless and really have impact on the social challenges that our world faces? But Gary, not everyone thinks like this.
Mm.
A lot of people who rise to leadership positions are all about me, me, me. They're all about making the dollars. They're all about sort of just self promotion and stepping on whoever they have to step on the way up, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, being a professor in a school of social work, as you can imagine, you know, this is not really what we focus on at all. We don't teach our students to be those kinds of leaders. Instead, we teach our students to have some value and some morals around what brought them to social work first and foremost. And then secondly, how can they use their platforms and leverage their leadership positions to make sure that they have as big of a reach as possible to help those communities at need?
Wow. You said a couple of key words, values and morals,
Mm,
and I'll leave it at that.
yeah.
Um, and so I mean, it behooves me. I still shake my head, and you
Yeah.
must as well. Like people don't look around and see who they stepped on to get where they are and acknowledge them. And I, I guess being a
Well,
coach, I've been,
yeah.
engaged in that conversation for so long now that it seems, it's almost like going out into the real world. And
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds funny because I think for some people it's a no-brainer. Like obviously, based on how we grew up or how we see the world, it's our natural inclination to want to give back, to tackle some of those wicked problems that we see in the world, those challenges that underprivileged people experience. But for others, that is not how they move about the world, Gary. I mean, it's
yeah,
really
no,
all about
I
how can I get to, multi-billion dollar status
know.
and I don't care what I have to do to get there. It's not really about what can we do to actually provide some social good to the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing it. It still needs doing. Is there a way to measure the effectiveness of social impact leadership coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll say that the way that I tend to do this with my clients is I often use a multi-layered evaluation approach. And
Hmm.
so I'm definitely a researcher at heart. I'm a data girl. I'm a data nerd, self-identified data nerd. But the nice thing about a multi-layered evaluation approach is it really goes beyond sort of those traditional coaching metrics. It really works to first start out with a baseline assessment, try to figure out where people are when you start that coaching relationship. And then we track both individual and organizational metrics along the way.
Uh-huh.
How are you progressing as an individual, but also looking at the dynamic between you and your organization along the way. I also measure impact in what I like to call ripple effects. So,
Yeah.
Not just how does our coaching engagement influence you as a leader, but how does that then ripple out to the people that you work with, your teams, the folks, your direct reports and others who are connected to you.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and there must be some pushback and some resistance to this kind of leadership. How do you handle those situations where the systems resist the changes that those leaders want to make?
Yeah, I think it depends. There are some organizations who pride themselves on having a social purpose, right? Naturally, those are a little bit easier to enter into because the leadership is saying, we don't just want to do, we just don't want to make billions of dollars. We actually want to do some good in the world and we want to, give back. We want to have every dollar that we generate in revenue go to this or that. And so, I think that it's about figuring out what is the climate for this kind of situation. What
Yeah.
is the current climate and how open and receptive is the organization to truly transforming themselves into focusing on social impact and having that kind of mindset in the work that they do. It can't just be a sign on the wall in the office, right? It has to be sort of a daily practice that continues to be monitored over the course of time.
Well, and now with the DEI being challenged and threatened, if you will, I've heard a lot from my clients about how they're still, I would say, doing the work. They're just
Mhm.
labeling it differently and maybe
Yeah.
going about it differently, and hopefully just as effectively. And I hope that you'll see that in your research and your training and teaching as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I will. I think folks are really trying to figure out, I think the word is pivot, how they
Mhm.
pivot
That's
in a
right.
way that
Yeah.
doesn't totally disrupt their workflow and their career trajectories, but also stays true to who they are as people. And yeah, as you mentioned, for some people that will be a title change. For some people, it's going to be something else.
Yeah. As long as the work goes forward, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
As long as
because
we
we
can continue to make
are
moves.
we are a
Yeah.
diverse world. We are a diverse world. Well, here's
Yes.
one that is directed at me. A
Okay.
question for you is, so what does a typical coaching conversation look like when you're helping a white leader like me examine
Yeah.
privilege and positionality?
Yeah, great question. Great question. And I get that question a lot, like how
Yeah.
do we enter into these spaces? Well, I'll say first that my work with all clients, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, is about creating psychological safety, right? And making sure that we operationalize that definition for ourselves. What does it mean to you when I say that word? And then I can tell you what it means to me. This work requires vulnerability. We have to be vulnerable. We have to break down barriers and truly speak to those those hushed conversations that we hear about over by the water cooler. I might be dating myself here, right? But by the water cooler,
I think the
right?
concept is still out there.
But when I am coaching leaders who don't share my same identities, I usually begin with a mapping exercise
Hmm.
that really helps us outline and identify all of the identities that that leader may hold. So not just race, but maybe class, education, gender, even geographic location, sort of where they are in the world and the context of that. And so typically we use that mapping exercise to explore how these identities have shaped their perception as a leader. Right? I mean, I think a lot of us do this in our coaching engagements. You sort of, where did you come from? How does that shape how you see the world? And then
Right.
how are you engaging in the work that you do?
Yeah, that's now part of the core competencies, finding out more
Yeah,
about who you are and what does that
exactly.
bring to the coaching relationship. Yeah. No, well done.
Exactly.
Through mapping. That sounds very
Yeah.
interesting. Now, I have to ask, being the white man of privilege in the room, what's the most common, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was leading like that.
Ooh. Um, so I've seen this now in probably I would say several of my clients up until this point. This is how I was trained in this particular climate and culture and with this particular sort of org
Mm.
behavior. And I'm now trying to bring that into this organization and nobody's feeling it. Like nobody is connecting with that particular kind of mindset. So I myself am a former athlete. And so So like for and I'll just use that as an example. Sometimes if we're former athletes, we get into a space with a team and we immediately start using sports jargon, we start using,
Right?
you know, and so
Right.
that can be off-putting for some people,
Oh,
or being from a certain part of the country, and the stereotypes that are attached to that, West Coast, East Coast, and sort of bringing that energy into a workspace. And people are like, oh gosh, this is just not the kind of leader I want to follow. Like, what is going on? But that's typically, I would say, the most common is someone saying, this is how I was trained. This is how I was raised. Like, what's wrong with me
yeah.
behaving like this? And I have to say, okay, let's take a moment
Mm.
and just acknowledge the fact that this is who you are. And this is how you show up in your leadership space. But let's think about it from your staff perspective. How are they receiving that person? Is it what's best for the team that you say those things or that you behave like that? And so that's really kind of what we're coming at. But that's it. It's people saying, this is who I am. They should just change instead of let's figure out how we can negotiate this
Yeah.
evolution with your organization. Yeah.
Well, and I'm guessing it's probably easier when we um, self-identify as wanting to make a social impact through our leadership.
Yes.
We're open to the conversation. I've been open to this conversation ever since I got the message from Robin DeAngelo at the ACTO conference in 2019 in
Yep.
Victoria, BC, and let's kind of give a lay of the land. The majority of coaching schools at that time were run by women
Hmm.
and predominantly white women.
Hmm.
And there was me at the back of the room promoting Choice Magazine. So I was, uh, first of all, I was the only guy and pretty much in the room. So no disrespect to the other ones who were there. I'm sure
Yeah.
there were, and I know who's going to call me out on it. But she said, she didn't say it directly at me, but I received it that I'm a white man of privilege, and I
Yes.
was kind of like, I was stopped in my tracks.
Yeah.
And not from just from being identified as such, it stopped me to think, so to your point,
Hmm.
how I'm acting and talking and doing and being impacting the people that I'm serving?
Hmm.
Whether that be the coaching, well, it's predominantly the coaching community through Choice Magazine and stuff like that. And ever since then, I just keep it like looking like, for example, we're in a predominantly Indian neighborhood, Indian immigrants, and they were under British rule. So what I
Hmm.
noticed is a lot of them call me sir. And I make a point of just kind of like, if I know them well enough to say, my name's Gary, right? Because I don't know that they still hang on to that or if it's like how did it become a cultural piece? I'm actually working with a client right now who we're working on, and keep feeling like I'm up here just because I'm a
Hmm.
white guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and
Yeah.
so one of my biggest jobs is to bringing to an equal playing field, an equal
Yeah.
level rather, of the no, equal power, if power is the
Hmm.
word to use, but having us, it's like I keep reminding my clients, you're the expert in your life. I'm not. So
That's right.
please, don't be elevating coaches. I've never said that, but you can
Yeah. Yeah.
tell. You can tell. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for you and all of the others who wrote for this and keep writing for our Kaleidoscope column, which is an ongoing DEI column, giving voice for coaches through Choice Magazine.
Yeah.
Because I just keep learning.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that too, Gary, because I think people don't realize that we all show up to certain settings with a certain amount of privilege, right? A lot of us don't want to admit that. And
Hmm.
I'll just use myself as an example. As a Black woman, would show up to spaces sometimes and say, "Oh, I understand your struggle. I understand. I'm a Black woman. I get it." And people would see that PhD behind my name and say, "You have no idea what we're going through." And I'm thinking, so it took me a while to realize, oh, yeah, like in some spaces, that PhD gives me some privilege that it doesn't in other spaces, right? Or the degrees or the title professor at this major university. And so I don't think people in general acknowledge the fact that to some degree, in certain spaces, they will have privilege over others, regardless of whether you see it or whether you want to admit it. It is there and other people see it and
Yeah.
will call you out on it if you don't see it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Hey, I was thinking at a pool party I was at recently, and I was all a bunch of white guys.
Yeah,
I was like, isn't that interesting, right?
yeah,
Facebook, you go through, oh, this might be a possible friend. White
yeah,
person, white person, white person,
yeah,
white person, right?
yeah,
So like
yeah.
the universe supports our privilege in a way too.
Hmm,
You
hmm.
have to fight on many fronts, not fight, but be aware and change,
Yes.
willing
And
to
be
change.
intentional. That's right. Yep.
Right, be intentional. So, so yeah, now I'm getting like, oh, okay. So where's equality, Gary, when you're saying hello to new friends on Facebook, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Wow, we could go on and on about this, let me tell you. Oh, what's your next work? What are you working on? Like, are you continuing that, but is there something else in your spare time, my
Yes. Oh,
dear?
the spare time that I have so much of, right?
Right,
Between
yeah.
being a
She's doing
professor
this,
and
this, and
all the
this, this,
things that I
this.
do
Yeah.
and the coaching. But I will tell you that one project that I'm really excited about right now is I'm doing some data collection with people who lead research entities. So research
Hmm.
institutes, research centers, research labs and programs, particularly people of color. I'm really interested in learning about their paths to leadership and their trajectories. How did they learn how to lead? How did they learn how to lead a team, to disseminate their work, to actually plan and organize and manage and operate? And some of these leaders that I'm interviewing, they run $50 million centers and institutes all over the country. And so it's just really interesting to work with them and sort of unpack, how did you learn how to do what you do every day?
Right.
And there's
Yeah.
always that pause, like, well, I guess I never thought about it. Let's talk about that. So that's the project that I'm probably most fired up about right now because it's sort of pulling the curtain back on a group of people who are just behind the scenes doing amazing work, but you never quite know the steps they took to get to their positions.
Look at you researching the researchers now, as if being a researcher wasn't enough. You had to
I
research
told you
the
I'm a big
research.
data nerd, Gary. You didn't believe me
Uh,
when
I got it.
I
I got it. Oh,
said.
well, you keep doing all that great work. What would you like our audience to do as a result of the article in this conversation?
Hmm. I would like the audience to read the article and do some self-reflection about how they show up to different spaces and realizing who they are, be they coaches or clients or just people who are intrigued by the idea and the topics that I present in the article. I would love people to really dig a little bit deeper and do some self reflection about what those words mean to them. Leveraging their own identities. I talk about that in the article. I talk about white fragility in the article and sort of how do you coach across race. And so I would love for people to just digest it and take some time to reflect on what's there and reach out should they have any questions or want to talk further.
Wow, thank you. And speaking of reaching out, how can they
Yes.
best reach you, Daphne Watkins?
Yes, yes. So I think check me out on my website, daphnewatkins.com, and I have links there for ways that people can reach out to me if they want to talk more.
Brilliant. Thank you. And good luck with all of your research, you data nerd, you. Self-responsible. She said it first.
Yes, yes. So we're gonna do hashtag data nerd. We're gonna
There we
start there.
go. There we go. Exactly. Nancy, when you're working on this recording. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this Beyond the Page episode, Daphne.
Thank you, Gary, for the opportunity to publish in Choice and for this amazing opportunity to speak with you today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
And me too. That's it for this episode of Beyond the Page. For more episodes, subscribe via your favorite podcast app, probably the one that got you here. If you're not a subscriber to Choice Magazine, you can sign up for your free digital issue by scanning the QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen. If you're listening and not watching, you can go to choice-online.com and click the Sign Up Now button. I'm Gary Schleifer. Enjoy the journey of mastery.